As we age, our brains start to become like worse and worse and they deteriorate, right? So in spirituality, the yang cultivation is to restore the brain, and I think ultimately almost like disperse into the Tao or something. But I wanted to specifically focus on the breathing aspect because in Chinese internal cultivation, we have our three main resources, which is the Jing, the Qi, and the Shen. And specifically, we're focusing on the Qi, which is through the breath. Now, in order to do this, you actually have to build your foundation, so the lower body, which is done by essentially not engaging in sexual practices, or if you do, then you don't release, right? And also you need to strengthen, okay, so the three main areas is the bowel, the bladder, and the internal genital region. And you can't have, like, just say if you have like an IBS or like excessive urination or something, just kind of issues of these, you have to fix that essentially, because it's a leakage of the essences of the body, right? And you lose this jing base. You can think of it as stamina, maybe, just in a metaphorical sense. You lose it from excessive like exercise and excessive work and all this kind of stuff. So you have to learn to build that up through just meditating on the lower body and like relaxing and just allowing that to like build, and you'll feel in these organs the building and like the kind of healing, tonifying, and like the pressures and like transformations and such, right? So once you've figured out basically how to do the lower stuff, and I've got another video on like the lower dantian and all that, basically just focus down there. Eventually you move up to the middle area of essentially the main area we're focusing on is the heart and the lungs, but the five organs in general is actually relatively important. Yeah, the liver, the stomach, the kidneys, it is all related, but mostly we're just focusing on the lungs in this case. Now, what you have to learn here, because it's like, imagine a bucket and you're trying to add water and raise the water line, right? Or raise the spirit thing. You have to learn to do something which I think is like, would probably be called embryonic breathing. And I would call it that because it is what I assume a baby is doing. And in fact, a lot of this meditation is actually to emulate that, because a child is in like the perfect, or an unborn child is in a perfect state of like meditation, right? It's in like this immortality growth kind of state, and we almost want to emulate that, because then we start to emulate the same hormones and like biochemicals and stuff that relates to growth and stem cells, and just like turning back the clock of aging and time and all this kind of stuff, right? So what you want to do is relax your breathing and slow down your breathing and focus on like the chest, kind of internal chest region, right? You'd think you focus on both the lungs, but I find just like in the center kind of works better. And your nervous system will fight you. You'll have to relax the nervous system, right? And it'll want to, just breathe in like tons of air. And the intention, you're not trying to breathe excessively deeply and excessively much. You're just trying to relax this area. And eventually what I've found happens is that firstly, it becomes very warm. You feel this like incredible sense of just energy radiating out from here. And you start to breathe, actually, it's like shallower, because I think the idea is that you're not actually trying to breathe. It's the best way to put it. What is it? an embryo doing, what is that, what is that the word? An unborn child, it's not really breathing. It's in like, it's like that Dragon Ball Z water chamber. It's like, actually, are they hooked up to oxygen? I think that might be, whatever. The air inside your body starts to sustain you. That's basically the whole idea. Okay, so if you can take one thing, is that if you slow the breathing down, and you have to do it, gently and slowly, you don't want to hurt yourself or anything like this, eventually you don't really need to breathe at all. I think this is what happens during sleep, and I think it's what they say that turtle breathes like 4 times per second. You don't have to force it to slow down or anything like that, but it's almost like you don't need to breathe. That's the best way I can describe it. Maybe do swimmers do this? And I think there's something to do with the spleen. Like the spleen starts to give energy to the body, but basically you just want to, again, slow down and relax that area and relax the nervous system. And when you build up enough energy there, as I said, your body seems to not need to breathe. And that's how I had this vision of like, being in the womb essentially, because it's like you get sustained by something. You don't need to, if you just sat in meditation in that state, assumably you wouldn't need to like eat or drink or anything, right? That's when all these ideas of like, people not needing to do that to replenish their energy, they just meditate basically. But once you feel that, and you'll feel the warmth, you'll feel this like intense energy and warmth if you can get there. Now, that's how you do like the chi stage, right? So you built up all the essences down below, and you have like a strong foundation, and like the low abdominals and all that. The glutes are all like sufficiently strong enough so you can sit. Or you could do this laying, it's up to you. It's probably better to do it sitting just so you can do it properly. And then you do the slowing down the breathing, the energy rises to there. Then you'll kind of naturally feel like there's too much pressure, there's too much energy there, and it'll want to rise the head. This is how you, assumably, not legal medical advice, assumably this is how the brain starts to regenerate and heal and such. So if you have, issues with the brain, this may help, right? Sensory issues, what happens to a lot of people, they lose their vision and hearing and all this kind of stuff, and then we just kind of call it age, and they lose their wits, right, their senses. But if you do this practice, you can, regain that, and then you can become mentally clear again. People talk about, brain fog, and when they were a kid, they could learn quicker and all this kind of stuff. That's why they say, it's like you're returning to a state of being a child or an adolescent or, whatever, mentally, because you were in that state where your brain was healthy, because it wasn't like overloaded with stress from working in society and nowadays, because of how complicated society is. We're just under so much stress, which is why everyone's taking all these strange medicines, I guess. They're doing all these external practices, but you can just internally, you can reach this, and your brain will just want to suck up all the energy that it can. And I believe this is the idea of restoring the mana. Like a magician would probably do something like this. They're basically cultivating mana, cultivating the mind. So anyway, that's, try it out. And again, as I said, once you feel that sensation of I'm not really breathing, don't be afraid of once it's a bit shallow or something. I don't know if it's like a build-up of chemically it's fascinating. Is it some kind of build-up of CO2 and maybe actually that's good for you or something? Or is it that, as I said, the spleen starts to like activate something, or I don't know, but it's this immense warmth, and it's like, whoa, because the opposite, people who've done like Wim Hof breathing, which is, it's in there really intensely, right? That makes you get lightheaded, and I believe that actually reduces your charge. It kind of gets you like a head high, and your body starts to, you get that like pulsing, like tinnitus, and like this is very intense. And then people do the holotropic breathing, which is similar, I believe, which is when they get like really high in the head. This isn't that. This is like the opposite, okay? So if you want to think, this is like literally the opposite of that, where you, again, it just, I get these visions of like, imagine in the past of like being underwater and like having to learn to like breathe underwater or not breathe at all. It's just this visions of like entering darkness. It's yeah, it's pretty crazy. So try it out. Give it a shot. See if you can hit that stage, and then start to regenerate the brain. Because that's how you do the yang cultivation. Well, the yin cultivation, as I said, that's kind of like level one. And then if you want to just stick, people who need a lot of stamina for their job, right, will kind of just stick to the yin cultivation. But it's good to do the yang stuff as well, so your brain is healthy and you can think properly, and you have a clear outlook. So give it a shot.